Welcome to Beneath the Branches, the podcast for the adoption and foster care clinic where we sit in the shade of shared experience. The heart is normalized and belonging is built one honest conversation at a time. Adoption, foster care, or kinship placement brings deep joy and real challenges, and we're here to talk about all of it. The hard, the heartwarming, and everything in between. So grab a cup of coffee, take a deep breath, and join us as we hold space for the messy, beautiful work of building connection beneath the branches.
Welcome back to Beneath the Branches. And today we're super excited to have our very first guest on the podcast. We have here Kristin Parks, who's the executive director of Show Hope. And we also have Justin Myers, director of programs. We're excited because Show Hope is a very faithful partner to us and has been really instrumental in helping us get our clinic off the ground. And we're excited that they get to be the first guests. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks for having us.
Mhm. Why don't we start off with just talking about like how you guys got involved in adoption, what your link is to adoption, and also with Show Hope as well. Like, how did you come to working for Show Hope?
Yeah. Well, I'll start. I've been at Show Hope for 6 years. Before that, I came from another nonprofit, large nonprofit in town, and have always really had a passion about things that shouldn't be. And stepping into that and using my giftings and skill sets, things like nobody should ever be hungry, or nobody should be without a home, but also that no child should never have a family or be without a family. And so that really, I think, is my heart behind it. I do have some adoptive family members as well, but just really grateful to be able to use my skill sets and passion to serve vulnerable children.
And you're a great executive director. Like, sometimes when I've asked you lots of questions of like, how do I do this? Then you're just full of wisdom for me. So I appreciate that. And I'll be continuing to ask.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I love those conversations.
How about you, Justin?
Yeah, so I've been at Show Hope about 4 years, and we've been on the adoption journey personally for 13 years. So brought 2 children home internationally, and I thought I knew everything when we brought them home. And slowly over the years, I've realized there's more and more that I don't know. And so continue to be on a learning journey. Was serving on a church staff before coming to Show Hope, and part of my role there was to help build out a foster care and adoption ministry and support. Really passionate in helping families coming behind us on that journey. And then when a position opened up at Show Hope, it was one of those opportunities that you think, I didn't know that I wanted that until I saw it. And so to be able to step into a role where I can serve families, serve churches all day, every day, is just really exciting. And to continually think, are we meeting the needs that are in front of us today? And what are the needs tomorrow that we can meet?
And you've got a unique perspective being an adoptive dad, and your kids are getting older and you're going through all those developmental stages. So you can even more empathize with some of the families and what they're dealing and what their needs might be.
Yeah, I feel like I indulge myself at Show Hope in some ways, because what I'm sharing with other families and churches, like, I'm taking home and applying at home.
Isn't that the truth? Same here. Same here. Let's talk a little bit about Show Hope. How was it started, and who's involved?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Show Hope started in 2003, and we were founded by Mary Beth and Stephen Kurz Chapman out of their adoption journey. They brought 3 girls home from China. And so really just began, Stephen tells the story that when they got home, people began, inquiring about, how could they get involved, and they would love to adopt, but the financial barrier was too great. And so Mary Beth and her heart began helping those families. And Stephen likes to say that Mary Beth was writing checks faster than he could write songs. And so out of that, Show Hope was born as a way to help support families on the adoption journey, particularly at the inception by reducing that financial barrier.
Mm-hmm. We have so many families in our clinic who got adoption aid grants from them. And it's been such a support for them through the years. And these are like patients that have been doing this for a long time, because you said it started
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
2003.
We've
So
awarded over 9,500 grants in our history.
9,500.
So we're approaching that $10,000 mark, not $10,000, 10,000 children brought home.
Wow.
So
And when Mary Beth and Stephen started Show Hope, they had this big crazy goal of helping 100 families adopt, and here we are,
yes.
still doing the work.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
incredible.
That's amazing. And, a lot of us know him through his music, like I was basically, grew up during my formative years listening to him, and a lot of his music just hits home even during the adoption journey as well. So it's such an encouragement in so many ways.
Yeah.
Definitely. We talked about the adoption aid grants, but tell us about other things, other grants that you guys provide.
Yeah, so you alluded to addressing the financial barrier to adoption, and at Show Hope, when we think about and organize our programs, it's really how can we reduce barriers to adoption.
Okay. Yeah.
And so 3 categories that we think through is financial, medical, and educational or knowledge barriers to adoption. So you talked about grants. So adoption aid grants, that's our flagship program. Been offering those for 22 years. Still very much a part of the work that we do. Families are still entering adoption. The financial barrier is still very real. Another resource that we offer that we're really excited about is called medical care grants. And we're in year 5 of the medical care grant. And that obviously addresses a financial barrier, but also a medical barrier. And I think something that we can all agree on is one of the hidden costs of adoption is oftentimes the medical costs that come with that, whether it's pre-existing conditions or conditions and situations that develop later on in a child's development and their journey. And so that's a resource that's available for families up until the child is 18. And then a few other resources. So pre and post adoption support is really important to us. A big resource that we offer under that is called Hope for the Journey, which is an online educational platform available year-round. And it offers knowledge and skills for caregivers of children impacted by trauma.
That's just a great,
Yeah,
great
so that's for
resource for people.
individuals, for churches, for adoption, foster care agencies, essentially anyone who would touch the life of that child.
And I think what's neat about it is the material never gets old. Like, I go through it once a year, whether I need it or not. I'm going to go through Hope for the Journey because my children are 1 year older. They're at a different developmental stage. And I always get so much out of it, even if I just hear the same thing in a different way that year, or think of other people that might really be impacted by that material. So it's an amazing resource for our families.
I can resonate with that because when we do film new sessions, and especially if it is some of the main teaching content that I've heard again, I always want to be in there because it's not the knowledge piece necessarily, it's the hope piece that really, really encourages me and refreshes me is I'm not alone in this. And man, my kids really are precious and they're worth every ounce of energy that I can put towards parenting them well. So it is a great resource.
Yeah. And even you mentioned also the medical care grants, and we have so many families that, even though we do pre-adoption evaluations and we try to prepare them for the medical cost or what special needs their child may have medically, there's stuff that comes up, or maybe they're not as familiar with their insurance policy as they thought they were, but and that deductible is too high to meet that year, without making a huge financial sacrifice. And they're looking for ways. They're looking for ways to pay those deductibles, to pay those OT and speech deductibles, and just new things that come along that you don't even realize when you're in that pre-adoption stage and just desperately trying to raise money just to get the child home,
Yeah.
And I think too, those things don't just go away even after the first year of adoption. You're still looking at therapeutic services long after that first year of adopting. So We've really appreciated that. Our families have really appreciated that and would not be thriving if it weren't for those medical care grants.
One of the things we often say is the adoption journey doesn't end the day a child is welcomed home. And
Yes.
we know that to be true, but really, Mary Beth and Stephen's heart is really to go deep with families and not to, okay, great, we helped you bring your child home financially, but to really continue on. And so we're able to do that certainly through our medical care grants, but then also through our educational resources. And so I appreciate that heart behind it too, of really wanting to journey well with families, like you guys do here as well.
And y'all have evolved as the needs have arisen too. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you started with just adoption aid grants and then like, oh wait, we see this. We need to see another way to go deeper. We see another way to go deeper. And then you continue to create according to the need. And that's just been refreshing. Mhm. You guys do a lot of advocating for adoption and also just bringing young people up to teach them about how to serve. Can you tell us a little bit about your student initiatives?
Sure. So students have always been really critical to the work of Show Hope. In a lot of ways, Show Hope began because of a student. So the eldest daughter of the Chapmans, Emily, when she was 11 years old, she and her mom went to Haiti, and part of that trip was visiting an orphanage. And so she saw a lot of children that were like her and that were similar age, but very drastically different circumstances and without family. And that really touched her in a deep, meaningful way. And so when she came home, she'll talk about she went on a letter writing campaign with her parents, uh, imploring them to consider, how do we step into adoption? Right? We have room in our home. We have hearts big enough to welcome another child in, and the Chapmans would say, no, we're willing to help others, but she wouldn't stop, and she was really passionate and knew God was leading them to step into this space personally, and so um, she had an influence that I think students today don't often think they have. And so, our student initiative right now is the Pause campaign, which is a 7-day devotional that's geared towards student groups. We love for groups to go through it together. It's called Pause because we're often asking student groups to pause from social media or YouTube or video games, which in and of themselves can be great entertainment. They can also distract from what's really important. And so taking these 7 days and saying, let me turn down the volume on that and really intentionally listen to what God says about his care for orphans and vulnerable children. What are the circumstances of these children? And then what are really practical solutions for meeting those needs? And by the way, students, you don't have to wait until you're adults to do something about it. You can step in right now and you can influence those around you. You can practically care for children around you. And so let's give you space to do that, right? And to do that together, because it takes courage to step out and to serve like that. And so we love seeing groups just pick that up and run with it.
That's a great age to start learning about giving back to your community and serving others. So that's just a wonderful initiative that so many young people would be attracted to. Definitely. Any other, or maybe we could even just kind of go back through some of the adopting. When you make a decision to adopt, there are so many hurdles to go through, so many challenges. What are the ones that y'all work with the most and try to overcome?
I think the knowledge piece is a continual need for families. And there's one sense in which I can gather all the knowledge and I have it in my head. But then once I'm actually going through the experience, sometimes it's really hard to access that, right? Or to go back and to say, 5 years ago when I was going through my educational requirements, let me pull out this little piece. So just always having that education and that support available to families when they need it, and because you don't always know when you're going to need it. I think that's really critical. And for families being open to that. You don't know what you don't know. And having those that are ready and available to offer that is really helpful. one of the other things that I would say, we talked about medical costs being a hidden cost. Um, there's also a lot of unseen needs that our kids have, and mental health and behavioral health needs come out of that. So we could talk about the impact of trauma on children in their early development, but adoption obviously begins with separation. And there's a grief at the beginning of every child's story that enters into adoption, and that can have significant effects on them. That again, you can't control how they're going to process their story, or even just the way that they're going to look at the world. But having resources that are available to even step into that, I think, is really critical.
I think that's a common misconception that adoptive families have, and me included, when I was adopting 20 years ago, was that, it would be tough at the beginning and then they would be just like birth children after that. And
Mhm.
it's not always the case. I mean, it's a long journey, it's a long journey because a child's development progresses as they age, and they go through different developmental stages where they're starting to process their own adoption and their own identity as an adoptee or a transracial adoptee is forming at a different level. So, and I love that you guys can work with a family through as they age. Do you know what I mean? Child is not too old to come and seek help with a medical grant or a mental health care grant, things like that. So, how can individuals or churches partner with you guys or help in the mission of Show Hope?
Well, I always like to say, first and foremost, pray for us. We're serving families. We're, on the front lines with many, and just really appreciate prayers. We as a staff pray together and pray for our families, pray for each other. And so prayer really is foundation of what we do. And then also come alongside us by sharing about our work. We really stand ready to help with grants and with resources and education, but so many people don't know, about our work. And, an easy way, of course, is to go to showhope.org and check that out, and can find the many ways to get involved, can also find ways to get in contact with us. But certainly would love for, others to advocate and just share on behalf so that we can serve more families. Anything you would want to add?
I would just add, this is not direct impact to Show Hope in our work, but I was talking to a church recently that was talking through the ways that their foster care and adoption ministry has developed, and more resources and intentionality they've offered around it. And I just thought, you're encouraging me just by hearing what you're doing. And so what I would say to churches and to church leaders is, take your foster and adoptive families seriously. And just because they're not saying what their needs are to you, you need to be preempting that and going to them and seeing what they need and wrapping around them as best as you can, and start where you can and grow from there.
That's a good word. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think too, y'all have been so impactful on so many individual families. I like what you said about Mary Beth and Stephen's desire to go deep. And I can think of so many families. I'm trying to pick one, because so many families will come to us and just where their family feels to them like they're in chaos, and there's just not a peace in their family, or maybe it's one child who's very dysregulated, really going through a hard time, so it's putting a strain on the whole family. And we say, okay, we can help you, but it's going to take 16 weeks. It's going to take, and then even after that, we're going to need to meet, every other week or every third week, and that gets expensive. And so being able to say, oh, but wait, we can ask Joe Hope for a grant, and we can actually make this possible. And there's so many families who just wouldn't be able to do it. And we actually wouldn't be able to keep our doors open either, because otherwise we would have to be out there raising the money and for all of these families as well. So it has really enabled us to become a clinic by being able to send our families to you guys. And a lot of times families will go through, and one kid will be having a hard time. They'll get a Show Hope grant for that child. And then all of a sudden they realize, oh, this other child in the family has really had some consequences from that child being dysregulated. And now they're dysregulated, or this is their time to really dig deep into getting counseling. And we'll say, okay, that's okay. I think we can handle it. Let's call Show Hope and see what they can do to help us. And it's just a beautiful picture of just orphan care, family care, and going deep to help these families. So thank you so much from those families and from us on having that type of impact on them and on us. And a lot of you may not know that this podcast is sponsored by Show Hope. And this whole room that we're in, the equipment, and what is making this podcast possible is donations from Show Hope. So thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. And thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah. Well,
I
thanks
really
for having
appreciate it.
us. And I love working with you guys. And I think just as you were sharing about making it possible, I think that's what happens when we work together. And,
Yes.
just the power of partnerships. And so grateful to be alongside you guys in this and the families you serve.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Adoption and Foster Care Clinic for another episode of Beneath the Branches, a podcast for adoptive, foster, and kinship care families. We are deeply grateful to our sponsor, Show Hope, for their generous support in their continued work to break down barriers to adoption and support families every step of the way. Until next time, may you feel covered, connected, and never alone beneath the branches.